Yeah, Shalom Israel. Before I start, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Hashem, Yahushai, Kadash, double honors to the elders and apostles in Israel who will and teach well, to the Akims and the Idols and byways and those pushing videos in truth and sincerity, to the brothers and sisters in the truth. Now, as you can see from the title, this is dealing with, are we allowed to go with women of the other nations? Now, I've heard brothers say, yeah, it's okay for you to go with a woman of the other nation. You can go and, for want of a better word, get your rocks off. That was the understanding that was given. But, we know with the scriptures it teaches that if you lay down with a woman, you're meant to make her your wife. But are we meant to be going with the women of the other nations? What does the scriptures actually teach? Now, this is Deuteronomy 7:1. It says, when the Lord thy power shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hast cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites and the Girgasites, and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and the Hivites and the Jebusites, even 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. And when the Lord thy power shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them. Thou shalt show them no nor show mercy unto them. Here's my point now. It says, neither shall thou make marriages with them. Now, how does marriage come about? When we go through the scriptures, marriage comes about for you lying with a woman. It says, neither shall thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. So when we read the scriptures, when we was going into the land, the Most High gave us a charge not to take wives of the nation that we're going was going to be amongst, we're going to defeat. And I heard a brother say, oh, well, this verse is only dealing with, because we was going into land, it's only dealing that we shouldn't take women of those nations. But, through the scriptures that I'm going to show, you see, it's dealing with the women of the other nations outside of these Hamites here that we quoted, that are read. But there's a reason also why the Most High told us not to do that. Now, when you read verse 4, it lets you know. I read 3 again. It says, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. For they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of Yahweh be, the Lord, be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly. So this is one of the reasons why the Most High told us not to deal with the women of the other nations. Now, when we look at the scriptures, we know that Moses had a woman of the other nations. So some brothers may look at that and say, well, Moses is permissible, but the Most High said he will have mercy on who he will have mercy. And none of us really are Moses. Moses might be around today, but for the best part, majority of the brothers that's actually taking up women of the other nations, you're probably not Moses. So it says, for they will turn away thy son, verse 4, from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly. And to prove that point, this is Nehemiah 13:23. It says, in those days also I saw Jews that had married wives of Ashdod, of Ammon, and of Moab. So Moab wasn't one of the nations mentioned when we read Deuteronomy 7:3. So those that want to say, oh, you're taking it out of context when you read Deuteronomy 7:3, Moab wasn't one of the nations when we read Deuteronomy 7:1. But those who want to say we're taking Deuteronomy 7:3 out of context because it was dealing with those nations, Moab was not one of those nations. So this is Nehemiah 13:23. It says, in those days also I saw Jews that had married wives of Ashdod, of Ammon. Ammon weren't one of those nations either. And of Moab, and their children spake half in the speech of Ashdod, and could not speak in the Jews' language, but according to the language of each people. So let's see what Nehemiah did when he saw that. If he condoned it. It says, and I contended with them and cursed them. Okay, look this up. I didn't look this up previously. Let's see what it says for contended. Nehemiah said he contended with these people.
Strong's H7378, Reeve, and second entry, Ruve.
It says to strive, contend. Yeah, so he wasn't being approval. It says to strive physically with words. And we'll see that, as we read on, Nehemiah was willing to strive with them physically as well with words. It says to conduct a case or suit, to make complaint, to quarrel, to contend against. So when it says that Nehemiah contended with them, he wasn't seeking peace with them or trying to condone what they were doing. It says, and I contended with them, yeah, I quarreled with them and cursed them and smote certain of them, yeah, physically with words, and plucked off their hair and made them swear by the Most High, saying, ye shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor take their daughters unto your sons, or for yourselves, which is going back to what we read in Deuteronomy 7:3. But hear this now. Verse 26 says, did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these things? Now, King Solomon was the wisest man upon the face of the earth. But the scripture is even teaching us that as wise as he was, he still sinned because he took on wives of the other nations. And when you read about King Solomon, one of the things that he did, in which verse 4 teaches us would happen when we go with these other nations, is that he started to build idols to the gods of these women of the other nations that he went with. So Nehemiah 13:26 says, did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these things? Yet among many nations was there no king like him, yeah, he was beloved of his power, and the Most High made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, yeah, even though all of that, nevertheless, even him did outlandish women cause to sin. And here we go, verse 27. Shall we then hearken unto you to do all this great evil, to transgress against our power in marrying strange wives? So, the Bible don't teach us that it's okay for us to go with women of the other nations. And we know that some brothers may have come into the truth, even some sisters, being with the other nations. And how does the scripture teach, what does it say about these things? And it's hard teaching at the end of the day, but it is what it is, because at the end of the day, you have to remember that we are a holy people. Let me bring out this. It's hard teaching, knowing that you're not meant to be with a man or a woman of the other nation. What did I want? Just 20 and 26. It says, and ye shall be holy unto me, for I, and we know that word holy refers to being set apart or separate. It says, and ye shall be holy unto me, for I, the Lord, am holy, and have severed you from other people, that ye should be mine. And when we even look at earlier on in the scriptures, the sons of God, we know that's the lineage that we came from. I should say we come from. What does it say here? I was the Most High vexed with the sons of God. Slakia. When we read Genesis 6:1, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God, sons of the Most High, saw the daughters of men, yet the women of these other nations, that they were fair. So yes, there are women of the other nation that do look beautiful. And they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. So the Most High weren't really happy with us taking women of the other nations. Okay, because what that did, we ended up going off. As it says in the scriptures, they would turn you away from serving me. But back then, we did that back then. And then, you'll have, obviously, you have women that look like the other nations, or actually Jake. You have to read the spirit, try the spirit by the spirit. But some brothers just love women of the other nations, and they'll be very carnal, she looked like Jake, she walked like Jake, must be Jake. No, she talked like Jake, she walked like Jake, she must be Jake. And that's how they're trying the spirit, like just very carnal, looking at her. Oh yeah, she shaped like Jake, she talked like Jake, so she must be Jake. No, try the spirit, because obviously we have speckled birds amongst the other nations, looking through generations of our fathers sleeping with these other nations. Now they look totally like the other nations, but you have to try the spirit. But on a basic level, we're not meant to be going with the women of these other nations. And our foreparents took that very seriously. Yeah, hear this now. This is Ezra 10:10. And Ezra the priest stood up. And this here is a hard pill to swallow for some of our brothers and sisters who come into this truth and are with women of the other nations, or vice versa. Now, does that mean, from a male perspective, you're with a woman of the other nations and you have to separate from her? You still have to take, and you've got child with her, you still have to take care of your child, because your child at the end of the day will be an Israelite anyway. And if you're a woman, that man still has a responsibility to your child, because is the father of that child, and how things go, he's meant to take care of the child. But the point is when we read the scriptures, we're meant to separate from these other nations, because we are a holy people. And like I said, it's a hard pill to swallow, but this is what the scriptures teach. And the Most High, knowing all things, this was one of the reasons why he put that in place anyway, knowing that if you did mix with the woman of the other nations or vice versa, when it comes to time to separate, that can be for some a hard thing to do. So to avoid that hassle in the first place, don't go down that route. Ezra 10:10. And Ezra the priest stood up and said unto them, ye have transgressed. So throughout we're seeing that doing so, and it's going to explain why they've transgressed, but let me read it. And Ezra the priest stood up and said unto them, ye have transgressed and have taken strange wives to increase the trespass of Israel. Yeah, when you're going with the women of the other nations, the Bible deals them as strange wives, because they are strange to us. Their ways, their customs is totally alien to us. That's why they will end up leading us astray. A lot of the men will go off, man. Says, now therefore make confession unto the Lord, power of your fathers, and do his pleasure. Yeah, what is his pleasure? And separate yourselves from the people of the land and from the strange wives. So this is what I'm saying, for brothers and sisters that's coming into this truth new and have women of the other nations. It's going to be a hard thing. And then that you'd have to separate yourselves. Because why? There's judgment coming for these other nations. And what do the scriptures teach? Instead of me paraphrasing and butchering it. One, we know they will lead you astray. Secondly, this is Isaiah 13. I'll start 14. And it shall be as a chase row, and as a sheep that no man taketh up. They shall every man turn to his own people, and flee everyone into his own land. You see? And everyone that is found shall be thrust through, and everyone that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. So this is another reason why you have to separate from the women and the men of these other nations, because if you're found joined onto them, you're going to face the judgment that's coming to them. So this is Ezra 10 and 11. Now therefore make confession unto the Most High power, unto the Lord power of Israel, and do his pleasure. What's his pleasure? And separate. Let me see. It's good to go into some of these words at times. Let's see what it says for separate. And separate.
Strong's H 914. Batel.
You see, it says to divide, separate, sever, yeah, cut off, to separate, set apart, which is what we are. We're holy, man. We're set apart. To make a distinction, a difference, to divide into parts. Look, it says to separate oneself from, yeah, to withdraw from, yeah, to be excluded. That's why, personally, I thank the Most High that He's never really put it in my spirit to be with the women of these other nations, man. But yeah, but this is what the scripture teaches. You know, we can't teach differently, but that don't mean I'm saying it's going to be an easy thing for some brothers or sisters to do. But like I said, you know, if brothers are with women of the other nations, you know, you still have a responsibility to that child. Because, and I say it that way because normally in separation, it's normally the woman that ends up with the child, and vice versa. You know, if you're a sister who's got a man of the other nation, you know, he still has a responsibility to provide for that child of yours. You know, if you're the one that's stuck with the child, and so on and so forth. Now, Ezra 10 and 11. Now, therefore, make confession unto the Lord, power of your fathers, and do his pleasure. What's his pleasure? And separate yourselves from the people of the land and from the strange wives. So, the woman, the scriptures is speaking or referring to the women of the other nation as strange, you know, which they are. You know, they're not holy. We are holy. We are set apart. Now, Tobit, chapter 4 and verse 12, it says, beware of all whoredom, my son, and chiefly take a wife of the seed of thy father. So it's also referring to it as whoredom. Just like how, you know, we're married unto the Most High, we're his wife, you know, speaking of Israel. And when we go after other gods, we're committing whoredom. When you sleep out of your nation, it's also been referred to as whoredom. It says, beware of all whoredom, my son, and chiefly take a wife of the seed of thy fathers, and take not a strange woman to wife. Yeah, we know a strange woman is dealing with those of another nation, which is not of thy father's tribe. For we are the children of the prophets, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, my son, that our fathers from the beginning, even that they all married wives of their own kindred, yeah, because only, like I mentioned Abraham, Moses, who had a woman of the other nation, a wife of the other nation. But for the most part, when you read of our forefathers, they had wives of their own people. Now, some had concubines, which were women of the other nations. If you look at Jacob, Leah, and Rebecca, they were of his kindred. But the other two sisters that Jacob had children with to make up the children of Israel were their concubine, yeah, were their maids, which were not of his people. And you know, in some brothers really believe that even in the kingdom, I've heard brothers say, yeah, in the kingdom we'll be having concubines. Like, for one, when you read the covenant, is that we're gonna have the laws in us. And we're going through the law now, and it's not really right for us to be taking women of the other nations. So why in the kingdom would we be taking women of the other nations as concubine? Two, why would our sisters will be in their right mind, 100%. Why would you want crisp biscuit for mash up crackers? Because the women of these other nations ain't going to be 100%. We're going to have to be teaching these other nations how to serve our power, our laws. So why would you leave your sister that's now 100% in her right mind to go and pick up a woman that's not in her right mind? And three, our bodies are going to be changed. Yeah, our bodies are going to be changed. So really and truly, with an immortal body, like just like the angels, them don't sleep with us. Yeah, don't sleep with mankind. Why are we going to be immortal and be sleeping with mortal? Like those two fleshes won't mix, man. This is 1 Corinthians 15 and 40. Oh no, I'll start at I'll start at 1 Corinthians 15 and 39. All flesh is not the same flesh. Yeah, so in the kingdom, when we're in the kingdom, we're part of that number, and we'll make it into the kingdom. We're going to be immortal. As you read down, it lets you know that this body, this mortal, has to change to the immortal. You know, this corruption has to put on incorruption. These other nations, they're not going to be like us. Yeah. So how could you then mate with, immortal, mate with mortal? Slakia, that don't make sense. Because all flesh is not the same flesh, yeah. So you'll be of one flesh, yeah, in the kingdom being immortal. These other women of the other nation are going to be mortal. That's a different flesh. Because all flesh is not the same flesh, but there's one kind of flesh of men, another flesh of beasts, another of fishes, another birds. And, we can't mate with beasts. Now, we have some base people that actually go and sleep with beasts, lay down with animals. But, the long and short of it, you never produce a child sleeping with an animal. You never produce a child sleeping with a fish. You never produce a child sleeping with a bird. Therefore, you won't produce a child from a mortal sleeping with an immortal. It says there are also celestial bodies. That's the type of bodies we'll have, those immortal bodies. And bodies terrestrial. These other nations will be terrestrial. But the glory of the celestial is one, yeah, and the glory of the terrestrial is another. Yeah, you don't hear about angels sleeping with mankind unless you're into Christianity and they butcher Genesis 6 and chapter 6. I think 1 down to 3, where it says the daughters of men saw the daughters of the sons of God saw the daughters of men, and they'll tell you that's angels sleeping with women. That was our forefathers sleeping with the women of these other nations, and that's not allowed. So going back to Tobit 4 and 12, beware of all whoredom. That's what the scriptures refer to it as, my son, and chiefly take a wife of the seed of thy fathers, one of your own people, and take not a strange woman to wife, which is not of thy father's tribe, for we are the children of the prophets, right? Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, my son, that our fathers from the beginning, let's quickly get that. What does it mean from the beginning? Let's see, is 2. Give me a quick second to get something from my Bible. This is 2. Oh, well in Genesis 1. Select here. Genesis 2. Yeah, so Genesis 2 says, even our fathers from the beginning. This is one of our forefathers from the beginning. Adam, let's see what he did. Genesis 2:21, and the Lord power caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. Yeah. And the rib, now, that's something different. I'm going to go there. It says, and the rib, which the Lord power had taken from man, made he a woman and brought her unto him, unto the man. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. Now, when it says bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, what does that mean? It's like here. This is Genesis 29. Let's see what it means. Bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. That's not the one I wanted. It's lucky as well. I'll go through some of them precepts and check. Anyway, I'll use this and I'll check the other one. It says Genesis 29:30. And it came to pass when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob, his sister's son. Yes, so this is says when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob, his sister's son. Yeah, so they're related. That he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house, and he told Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, to Jacob, surely thou art my bone and my flesh. And he abode with him in the space of a month. So these were of his kindred. So going back to Genesis 2 and 23, when Adam said, this is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. Yeah. Adam, the Most High gave Adam a woman of his kindred. Let me quickly check out this other precept. So that Israel. Didn't plan to go here, but it won't be for edification. All right, this is 2 Samuel 5:1. Then came all the tribes of Israel to David unto Hebron, and spake, saying, behold, we are thy bone and thy flesh. Yeah. So going back to Tobit 4:12, behold, beware of all whoredom. Yeah. Going with these women of the other nations, my son, and chiefly take a wife of the seed of thy fathers, and take not a strange woman to wife, which is not of thy father's tribe, for we are the children of the prophets, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, my son, that our fathers from the beginning, read about Abraham, Adam, even that they all married wives of their own kindred, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, and were blessed in their children, and their seed shall inherit the land. Now, this is 2 Ezra 8:6-9. The nation of Israel, the princes and the priests and Levites, have not put away from them the strange people of the land. So we keep hearing this throughout the scriptures. No, the strange people of the land, nor the pollutions of the Gentiles, to which of the Canaanites, Hittites, Perizzites, Jebusites. So like we was reading in Deuteronomy 7:3, and the Moabites, Nehemiah, Egyptians, and Edomites. See? So brothers who wants to look at Edomites, and not be spiritual and judge whether they're actually Israelites and just look at them shape, their beauty, and say, right, you know what? She looked like, she shaped like Eve, she walked like Eve, she talked like Eve, she must be Eve. It says, for both they and their sons have married with their daughters, and the holy seed is mixed, see there, with the strange people of the land, And from the beginning of this matter, the rulers and the great men have been partakers of this iniquity. That's what the Bible refers to as a sin. Now, is there any instances where you can take a woman of the other nation? Yes, but I doubt this will really apply to any of us today. This is Deuteronomy. Oh, I'm already here, stupid. Deuteronomy 21 and verse 10. It says, when thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, and the Lord thy power has delivered them into thy hands, and thou hast taken them captives, and seest among the captives a beautiful woman. So like I said, some of these women of the other nations are beautiful, but the Bible is giving you the guideline in which you can take one of these women, and the key word, to be your wife. Not to just sleep with and bounce, which some brothers do promote, being able to go with a woman of the other nation, get your rocks off and bounce. That was the term kind of used, get your rocks off. It says, and seest among the captives a beautiful woman, and as a desire unto her, that thou wouldest have her to thy wife. Then thou shalt bring her to thine house. But the key thing says, when thou goest forth to war against thine enemies. And the Lord thy power has delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captives. And we're not going to be doing that in the kingdom, because like I brought earlier on, all flesh is not the same flesh. And seest among the captives a beautiful woman, and as a desire unto her, that thou wouldest have her to thy wife. Then thou shalt not desire to get your rocks off. Then thou shalt bring her to thine house, and she shall shave her head and pare her nails, and she shall put the raiment of her captivity from off her, and shall remain in thine house, and bewail her father and her mother a full month, full 30 days. And after that thou shalt go in unto her, and be her husband, and she shall be thy wife. So we know when you're sleeping with another woman, when you go to sleep with another woman, that's how she becomes your wife. So teaching that it's okay to go with the women of the other nations, just get your rocks off when you're ready, that's promoting whoredom. And that's how it goes. So that's the only stipulation really when you read the scriptures, where it permits you to take a woman of the other nations to wife. That's just something I want to touch quickly. That's just something I want to touch quickly. When it comes to us dealing with the women of the other nations, hopefully someone gets edified from that. Like I said, and when we read Ezra, it speaks about separating from the other nations. It can be a hard thing for some of our people that's just coming into this truth to know this is what the Bible teaches, but that is what it teaches, man. The scripture lets you know they will turn your hearts away from serving Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. And if you're found joined onto these other nations in that time, you're just going to get caught up in their judgment. So, hopefully there's some understanding with that. Someone found it edifying. With that, I'm going to close out. I'm going to give all praises to Yahweh, Bashem Yahweh Shai, Maharakah Kadash, Kwame Sha'Allah.